Okay, well, Jason's here, we can get started.
Yeah, you
Oh.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Appreciate you taking the time to spend some time with us today. We'll do some introductions first. I'll let my esteemed colleague, Cindy McCurry, introduce herself.
So I'm Cindy McCreary. I am local to the Sacramento area. Can you guys hear me okay? Because there's mics. I can right in the back anyway. So Sean and I are both solutions consultants, system engineers, techies in Sacramento, focused on the state of California and local government in the Northwest. So is there any counties and cities represented, or we have mostly state here? No one's talking. Counties and cities? State? Okay, state. All right, and I've been with Splunk for about 6 years, done a lot of different things with a lot of different customers, and Sean and I are tag teaming this presentation. My background before Splunk was lots of IT, ops, and various jobs such as that. So.
Yeah, well, I was told there might be hundreds of people here, and I said, Cindy, I might need some help with this. I'm getting a little nervous, right? She said, well, don't worry, I got your back. We'll tag team this. So anyways, my name's Sean Collins. I'm a sales engineer with Splunk. Prior to coming to Splunk, I worked at HP for their application performance management software. And prior to that, I was with Mercury Interactive as a systems engineer and a help desk manager. So what we thought we'd do today is we knew it was going to be the last session. You guys have been probably PowerPointed into a coma by now, so we wanted to have a little fun. So what we're going to do is go through some slides, kind of talk about some of the challenges that IT is facing and how Splunk's helping to address those needs. And we're going to do 2 live demos. The first one's going to require a little bit of participation from the crowd. Should be fun. We've got some prizes to give away. And then the second live demo, Cindy's going to do a live demo of IT service intelligence. So without further ado, we sure are. Yes, we're going to show you both of them. 2 demos for the price of 1. So before we get started, I want to tell you a little story. It's an Indian fable. It's about the blind men and the elephant. So it goes something like 6 blind men were asked to describe an elephant. And depending on where they were positioned on this elephant, they described it as a fan or a spear or a snake or a column. And the moral of it is they were all right. They were all right based on their perspective. And this is what we're seeing in IT, that different departments have different views into their data, siloed views. So it's very hard to step back and get the whole picture, right? So when things go wrong, people are usually running around manually trying to cobble information together, come back to a war room and figure out what went wrong, right? So there's a lot of pressure on IT because the business runs on top of IT. So without IT, there is no business, right? Not anymore. And it's very difficult. IT's tasked with getting, the right information to the right people at the right time so they can make informed decisions on it. And to really, make this even more difficult, the complexity over the past 10 years or so has really become, really gotten out of hand. So if you think back even 10 years ago, right, we had this kind of physical IT where everything was very contained, not a lot of change, and easy to get your arms around, right? A few years later, we had this explosion in virtualization, and now we're in this kind of hybrid cloud mobile services world where, if anything along the way goes wrong, it can impact the entire business service, right? It's very, very difficult to find out when there is problems. So, we always say it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, right? And it's never this easy. So it's never this easy, but why is it so hard? The reason it's so hard is that the data that we have to look at when there is a problem is data that's generated by our machines, by the different network components that make up a business service. And it looks like this, right? It's really ugly and hard to understand. So when something goes wrong, what we usually have to do is get developers or tier 3 folks involved to parse through this and kind of figure out what happened. What Splunk does is it actually gives you insight into all this different data. So if you look close, you can see that we've got things like customer IDs, order IDs, right? And once you have this information, you can start piecing this together and telling the story. So the beautiful thing about Splunk is not only does it take in data from all your different devices and servers and applications, it can piece those together and correlate them for you so you can actually see exactly what happened. So you could see someone tried to place an order, they got a connection refused, or unable to complete their transaction. They then called the customer support center, was put on hold for about 4 minutes, got frustrated, hung up, took to social media to complain about their experience, right? So not only do we see user experience, but we understand user behavior from this as well. So we actually have a customer, Domino's Pizza, who uses Splunk to, in real time, kind of change their couponing strategy as they go. So the story is their servers crashed a couple of years ago during the Super Bowl. They ran a Super Bowl ad, which are really expensive, right? So the servers crashed. They brought Splunk in to get some visibility into the application. But they noticed that in the Apache web logs, there was all this information that the marketing group had been asking for. And these are reports that they had to manually create and give to marketing group. But now they're looking at last week's or last month's data. So they've seen all this data. They were able to create dashboards in real time for the marketing group, who now uses that to adjust their couponing strategy depending on user behavior. So it's really cool. And just to kind of give you an example of what real-time data looks like, because it just doesn't make sense to run the business on, last week's or last month's or even, 30 seconds ago data. So if you would please, and I'm surprised I don't see anybody on their mobile devices except one, but that's all right. I'm not going to take no offense to that. You know who you are. If you could, please take out a mobile device and just go to splunk.com/shake. And when you get there, you're going to see a screen that looks like this, right? It's going to ask you to select a state. Now, normally we'd be using your GPS coordinates, but since we're always all in the same room, in the same location when we run this demo, it doesn't make sense to do that. So if you want, go ahead and pick your favorite state or the state your kids go to college in, whatever the case may be. After that, it's going to ask you for a team name as optional. How about we could do this? From the red shirt over, you guys are the red team, and you guys are the blue team. Does that work? So everyone on the right side of the room is the blue team. Everyone on the left side of the room is the red team. And is anybody not there and not ready to go? Don't do nothing. You're cheating. You're cheating.
The red team is. The red team is.
Splunk.com and then /shake. Yep. There you go. So there you could go. As you can see, we're shaking away here. We got total shakes. We've got Apple and Android. Apple seems to be kicking our butts, guys. Come on with the Android devices. King of the hill, Apple, shakes by device, and then the acceleration of the shakes. 49ers, I like it. And we even plot this out on a map. So this is what it looks like to see your data in real time, right? So as it's happening, you're able to visualize it, you're able to see it, you're able to make informed decisions on that data. And again, down here we have some really cool mapping technologies. So, you can see where people are coming to your site from, where they're logging in from, or authenticating or failing to authenticate from. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cindy.
Do you have any questions for the audience, Sean? We need to throw some of these. We didn't get a winner, like red team. Do we have red team, green team, blue team? See, we should have done Android versus Apple. I think.
Well, I think Apple probably won then.
Who really wants a Splunk pony? Ah. Okay. So while you're throwing that. All right. Well, that's kind of fun. You guys can stop shaking. That was awesome. Let's go back. I do have a couple more slides, and then we're going to get into demo 2. But the point of that demo was really to help you guys see that, hey, that's machine data, right? We're getting machine data from our cell phones. We're getting machine data coming from all different areas. That was one mechanism that we use to collect machine data, and you can get machine data from a number, whether it's syslog, whether it's a log file on your file system. It could be, connecting through an API call because there's certain data in that that you need. So just as a show of hands, how many people are focused on security in the room? So we have 2. IT operations, couple. And from an IT operations standpoint, are you focused on the network, like call out? What do you, servers? Storage and compute. Application. Okay, awesome. So that's a great segue into what I wanted to talk about. So what Splunk is doing is we have a couple of customers that use Splunk, and then we have some folks that maybe have heard about it. Anybody have never heard about Splunk and just thought this session sounded kind of cool and you came? Awesome, love it. So Splunk can be a little bit of all things to all people, so it's a little confusing at first to what do we really do. And what we really do at the bottom of it is we take in machine data from all kinds of different sources to satisfy all kinds of different use cases. So the storage guy, the infrastructure guy, the applications person, you guys all have, the security people, all have different use cases. So the idea is that you can have different lenses into the same data. So that's the core capability. And I thought I'd have some more fun with some interesting graphics. So this is a picture of all of our customers. So you should be able to find your logo in there somewhere, those of you that are current customers. And each of our customers are doing quite different things with Splunk data. So I heard DMV. DMV has a fairly small Splunk license right now, but we're doing some really interesting use cases around security. And there's some fraud analytics that are taking place. We're also focused on some security use cases. And so those two things at DMV, at Franchise Tax Board, it's also heavily used in security. Welcome, come on in. You missed the fun shake demo, but we still have some other things to do. So really, every one of those agencies and all of you guys have different applications that you need to support as IT people. And most likely you're maybe not focused on that end business service every day because you have your particular technology component that you're most concerned with. But we all have to keep our eye on this, right? The big picture. What is that application layer that we're trying to serve? The other is, if you're responsible for the infrastructure, well, what is infrastructure? It could be the storage. It could be the servers. It could be the network. We don't want to be that guy right here that has to sleep in the server room, and because you're afraid that something might break and you want to be right there. So that's part of the stack. We have to have these silos. What about database? So do we have any DBAs in the room? No. Well, those DBAs, they have the same challenges, right? They got 2 or 3 different database platforms. They have different tools to monitor them. You may or may not know if a database that goes down represents my CalPERS or represents Franchise Tax Board, my FTB. You don't necessarily know that. How about virtualization? Any VMware folks got a VMware? So virtualization layer, you guys are the ones that get squished on all sides, right? It's always that it's always the virtualization stack, and you're constantly having to try to say, well, it's not my thing. You can't always blame Canada. It's not my problem. We're just providing this extra layer. So you need visibility into things that you guys depend on and support. So what you really want is to have this vertical slice of all these horizontal layers. You need the horizontal layers because, we can't all be experts at every single technology component, so you need those horizontal layers, but you want to have that vertical slice. And because Splunk is that platform that takes in all of this data, so you learn from the Shake It demo, we can do data from your mobile phone, we can do data from all these different things, you have the ability, that's what makes Splunk good at this. So how's that? Is that a little too cheesy? All right, so Splunk is that machine data platform that can take in all of this different thing, these different data points, and then start to consolidate that. So what I'd like to walk through now is what we're doing with IT Service Intelligence. And so this is an application that sits on top of the Splunk platform that gives you that view into your vertical slice. And so when I walk through the demo, there's going to be 3 key things that I want to walk through. One is, how do I visualize that my key business service? So as you think about, we got a whole bunch of new people in the group. We've done a little bit of polling. How many people are Splunk existing customers that just walked in? Awesome. And are you focused on IT or security? IT? Security? Neither. Both. Oh, perfect. So what this application the demo that I'm going to show is not at all focused on the security solution that we have, but it still sits on the same platform. So this is all around the IT operational intelligence, that vertical slice. So when I walk through the demo, I'm going to show you how you can visualize that vertical slice, how you can then take from that high-level visualization and start to do individual troubleshooting. And then if we have time, we'll walk through some of the ease of use components. How could I take machine learning and start to help me create key performance indicators, and then apply that to that overall monitoring picture. So let's get started. And get out of PowerPoint. How's it gone? Okay, so what you're looking at here probably isn't going to impress a lot of you that have monitoring tools. They're going to say, I see this sort of thing every day. Great. Red light, green light. This is that big picture. What you're seeing at the top is your business services, and at the bottom are key performance indicators. How many people do you think in terms of key performance indicators? Does that mean anything to anybody? Yes? What does it mean to you guys? Federal funding. That's a big one. That's a big one. So and that's because it's a service level agreement that you have to keep up with. Okay, Sean, I put you on the spot so that you get my esteemed colleague will start throwing stuff at you. Yes. So what a key performance indicator is for Splunk is anything you want to measure. So it could be, if you're a storage person, it could be disk full. If you're a server person, it could be that I have too much memory utilization or too high CPU. If you're an applications person, my app is slow and it's problematic. So these are just roll-ups of what you're seeing there. So what we really want to be able to show you is how you can, now this is maybe not the best artwork. This is my little attempt to say, if I was responsible for Medicaid, and this was all of the components that made up my Medicaid application, this is my picture. So in your own mind, say, that app that I'm responsible for, and it doesn't have to necessarily be, my FTB app or, DMV licensing. It could be a business app. It could be a technical service that you're trying to, but this visualization is whatever you want it to be. And so what this allows you to do is create a nice high-level visual for, let's say, your executive tier, maybe your IT ops tier, maybe your security tier. You can make this however you want to visualize. And what I'm seeing here is that my Medicaid flow depends on the Citizens Portal. It has a mobile app. But what I can see immediately is the database tier is where the problem is really, really happening. So I can zero in on this, and I can, with this drill, I can drill to another visualization that I maybe get into the second level detail, or I can drill to a dashboard or whatever I want to navigate to. So this next level of detail will give me detail about the database tier. And again, this could be the entry into the app where people are coming, but so that's terrific. Now I can start to say, oh, well, it's happening. It's my key performance indicator around the response time. But now I want to get maybe in a different hat, and I want to say, now that I've identified the problem, I want to start troubleshooting. So you can get into the actual troubleshooting process with the app by stacking all of the horizontal layers of this tier in one spot. So I don't know how many of you have different applications and like 2 or 3 monitors in your desk, and you're kind of setting them next to each other and trying to correlate, from one app. Has that ever happened to anybody? Yeah, a few nods. So that's what this is. So this is the ability, and with highlighting, where I can say, wow, there's some issue with storage. I want to drag this up and make this a little bit more. My database queries are expanding. So I can say my service is starting to degrade, and all of a sudden I have increase in response time for my database queries. If I want to get to the raw data, I can literally just click here and get to those raw events. So with Splunk, we index all this detail, so you can always keep it at a high level, but you can also get at that raw event. The other thing is I say, oh, well, look, CPU utilization is really, really high here. Maybe I want to look at the OS details for the CPU. So then you can select a particular graph and drill into that CPU detail. So this has all of the different host details of what's going on. So I'm started at the top, started to navigate and traverse with root cause analysis, and could see, yeah, all of a sudden, wow, I got a spike in disk. So maybe it's my disk space issue. My disk is potentially my problem. I didn't want to do that. So, and then when I look at the details of these errors, so this is the detail of the data. Disk is full, writing, so I can narrow down to, very, very easily narrow down to the root cause of that problem. Now, let's say, I'm going to hide this. If I wanted to compare this, so this is an analytics, but what if I want to compare this to what was happening maybe yesterday to see if this is out of bounds? I can just simply click that box, compare it, have multiple swim lanes from last week or today, and start to compare different time ranges. And then the other thing that I wanted to point out is, now that I know what the issue is, maybe I want to start to create an alert for multiple conditions. So I'm going to say if my storage has a high percentage, if my database queries are starting to really spike, and let's say I'll throw in if I have some database errors. And I can create what we call as a multi-KPI alert very easily by checking a few of these boxes. And then I can decide, or I can set up whether one is a higher priority. I think I didn't check one, but this picked up 2 of the ones I checked. So I can zero in on what the priority is and make one a little bit less important than the other. So that's what it takes to actually create an alert with those conditions. So that was high-level troubleshooting. The last piece that I wanted to go over is what are some of the tools that we have in place to make all this billing, actually let me skip over to this, to make building these KPIs a little bit easier. So what this is the corporate website. So I'm looking at data coming into Splunk from the corporate website, and I want to apply a threshold template to I want to apply a threshold template to my data, and in this case, I don't know, I can barely read this because my glasses, I don't have my glasses, but I think this is the one I want. I had to change my resolution down so that it actually projected here, so now I really can't see what I'm doing. But so this is the data in a training window of 7 days. So this went through my web data over the last 7 days and figured out a pattern for that. And now I can configure thresholds based on hour of day, and I can manually do all this stuff. But what I want to do is apply this adaptive thresholding. And so this is going to apply machine learning to that 7-day training window. And it's going to figure out, hey, 2 standard deviations, that was a template that I used. This is out of bounds. This is within tolerance. So I can see that quite easily with this graph. So that's one of the techniques that we do to help you build out those key KPIs or key performance indicators. The second one, and this is the last thing I wanted to walk through, is we have modules that you can add to this so that you have some of these KPIs. You're seeing 4 of them here, application servers. So for application servers, typically people want to monitor available thread, response time. So we have these modules that have particular KPIs that are defined for you. So let's say I'm the database person instead, and so if I click on the database module, it will give you the typical things that people would want to do for a database. But this is the jump start, right? All of these things are just core Splunk searches. So anything that you guys monitor and manage yourself with Splunk, you can just pull those as searches and create KPIs, and then those roll up into your key business service. Any questions?
How many KPIs can you monitor?
It is, yeah. It's more architecturally, how do you set up the system, and do you have enough power to traverse through the amount of data that you're looking at and what you're measuring. Sure. Anybody else? Does this, go ahead.
So we have data that comes from like 5 major sources, and it downloads different times, but we don't necessarily know if it doesn't complete download as we thought it did.
Mm-hmm.
Does this have an ability to measure that?
Yeah, so maybe on a normal basis, you're going to download this kind of volume, let's say, and then all of a sudden you have this lapse. Is that what kind of?
That, like, say if it's supposed to merge with these different databases, and on this day it's supposed to automatically happen, is there a way that the system will notify you if it doesn't?
Yeah, well, so you can, so whatever tells you that it didn't, if you're taking in the logs for that and identifying that there was a failure in a particular log because that job, maybe the batch job didn't run, and so then there's some logs that you can bring that in, do a search against that. Anytime that error code happens, that could be your KPI. You could look at it from a data perspective. Hey, if this batch job runs, then I'm going to get web data, and if it doesn't, I don't. So if there's gaps in data, that could be an alert. So there's a number of ways that you can attack that.
Does Splunk monitor individual processes, like a batch process, or how about an individual application?
Yes. So any machine data. So when you talk about an individual application, there's it's going to either spew out log files, or maybe syslog traffic, or maybe it writes stuff to a database. It does whatever way that you want to monitor, because that's all machine data. We can bring it in. It doesn't matter if it's really strange in format. We can bring it in, make sense of it, and help you create searches against it.
One of our application we know is every time when they have is the database they have the issue. So how can we use your software? How can we know what's the problem?
So in my example, there was a database issue. With this, these are typical things you would measure on a database: active connections, deadlocks, I/O, storage. So there's a number of things that would tell you whether the database is healthy. So really it's what searches would you like to create as a KPI. We've given you some examples. You can add whatever you want. And then that rolls up as a key performance indicator for that service. And then when I did the 3 multiple KPIs, if the database is weighted at the top, you can make that weight more than, let's say, CPU utilization or memory or whatever else you're monitoring.
Could you distinguish is the database itself have the issue, or is the SQL statement and the application, and in the application has the problem? Can you distinguish that?
Yeah, potentially. So the SQL statements you can also monitor. So you can say, I want to bring in the actual SQL statements, but it's whatever. If you can answer the question with the data, then you can leverage Splunk to consolidate that and connect it into the service that you're trying to manage.
So the results come in text format and you just have to search based on the event?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, because what we're seeing here is an application on top of the Splunk Enterprise platform. And typically when I talk to customers, we have a big varied audience here. Some of them are existing Splunk customers, some are not. We go through the Splunk core demo, which is raw. Here's the raw data. Here's how I keyword search. Here's how I create a dashboard. That would give you that nice understanding. But in a nutshell, we're bringing in all the data that Sean showed in his PowerPoint, the way it looks. And then at search time, we're extracting key fields. And then you can use those fields to start saying, give me some pretty reports based on, let's say, if you're interested in your web application and you want to know where the URI. So we could tell, from that HTTP collector, we could tell what type of phone everyone had. We didn't ask you guys that, but because that's part of the app, we were able to pull that out, and we could say Android versus Apple.
So we can query through that.
Exactly. So you can search through a massive amount of different type of data and correlate it together.
Is it done on real time?
Yes, it is. And sometimes we want to say near real time, because it depends if you're talking about the stock trend. I mean, where is real time? Like you saw how, if I went back to that shake demo and no one started shaking, you would see those dashboards were completely empty. Once you started shaking, so it is as real time as most people care about. Like LinkedIn was a customer of mine, and I could literally go to my LinkedIn page, and I had a computer that I was looking in the back end, and I could see what I was doing in Splunk from looking at. So it's flowing as people are interacting with the application.
But in the back, basically, you are feeding in all the data to Splunk, so it should be taking some amount of time to feed that data to Splunk to detect that.
Yeah, well, I mean, were you here when we did the shake demo? Oh, okay. You missed the fun part. So basically what we did in our demo is everybody logged into a website that said, shake your phone. So you logged into a URL and everyone was shaking your phone. And every shake wrote a record, and we were bringing that data in. You can, with this HTTP collector, you can bring in millions of events a second. So it's pretty near real time data flowing in to the system. I've been given the 1 minute. It's time to. So we'll have one more question, and then I'll be around to answer any questions.
No, go ahead.
Is there a lot of overhead sending all the data to a single source?
Well, typically we compress the data, and it's textual data, so it's not like big packets of data. And because we're streaming it in real time, so depending on the type of connection, so we have forwarders that you can install on a server, and you can send data across a wire. We'll throttle the bandwidth, and we'll compress. So we'll send chunks of that data in a compressed format over. So typically the networks are plenty powerful enough. That's not usually where we see a bottleneck. Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody, and I'm around. Sean and I are around for any other questions. How's it going?